On today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, that's 2 games down in this 6-game homestand for the Colorado Avalanche, and they've scored 5 goals in both of those games, and in the process with this win, at least points-wise, tied with Minnesota as they beat them 5-2. Let's talk about this one. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
Your Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. If you want to join in on the conversation, join our subtext. The link is in the show notes below. You chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. We get your opinion, everything Avalanche related, which we share on this very podcast. We'll check in with the subtext people a little bit later, get their thoughts, and if they have any sound checks for this Avs win 5-2 over Minnesota. So that's the first 2 down of the 6 at home. And like I said in the opening, you get 5 in both of those games, which is nice because, you know, the weekend that weekend is going to go down in just like history of like one of just the worst weekends of the season for the Avs. But they've come out of it, and in these 2 games, they seem to have found their scoring touch again. Yes, I know Minnesota is down some guys. I don't think you're going to hear them use that as an excuse or anything like that. But they were up in this game. And I thought this was going to be one of those games where it was a kind of a grinder, like we thought it was going to be. And in some ways it was, but the Avs with that second period where it's just, you know, back-to-back goals essentially. And Minnesota just didn't have the firepower to hang with the Avs for the duration of this game. So the guys that they're missing are substantial, but and the Avs didn't let them stick around for too long. Once they got the lead, it was like, we're not letting go of this.
And, you know, we talk about this all the time. It's rough to get like overly excited because this is the first time they strung 2 wins together in a while. And you're just like, they're finally on the right track. And then you look back to last weekend, the entire weekend, they scored 2 goals. In the last 2 games, they scored 10. Nice. So it's a weird adjustment, but my goodness, the team, it's the Valnichushkin factor. They got fire, they got grit, and we talked about it going into this game. Like Gustafsson, don't let him get settled. His cross crease save ability was looking great. They had to get creative, and it's insane. The Avs were 2 for 3 on the power play.
What's going on, man?
That's
they've been again good.
Is it a nuke thing? I don't know, but this team, and it's not just like the top guys that are doing it. Like, this is a depth. You go down the goals. This is the depth coming alive. Like, everything's starting to click, and the team's thawing out, everybody. So enjoy the depth scoring. And, like, you got punched in the mouth, and you responded, and you kept going. That little flurry in the second period was enough to get you the win.
There's something else I want to talk about in the second period in a minute, too. But I'm just looking at their schedule. They had the 2 wins in a row right before the Four Nations break, the Flames and the Oilers, and then game prior to that they lost to the Canucks. Then they did have 2 wins in a row between the Blues and the Flyers, and then it was that win-loss thing. Like, just it was, you know, since the turn of the calendar. But you know, it's few and far between where you're getting a winning streak for the Avalanche. So we knew this was an important 6-game homestand. It's nice to get out to the first 2 under your belt. And yeah, you mentioned like the power play. You're not sure what it could. It's probably a lot of things. Is it Valnichushkin? Sure. Is it the fact that the Wild are horrible on their penalty kill? Yeah. On the flip side of that, you saw the Wild and they're just they did have 1 power play goal, but outside of that, like, they're just ineptitude on their penalty kill is just atrocious. There was 1 penalty or power play that they had where it was the second they'd get in the zone, it was what the Avalanche went through early in the year. Just couldn't do anything right. But you saw the first power play goal, you mentioned Valenzuela and what he can bring to the power play. It was that. I mean, that's right in, not directly in front of the net. He's backed up maybe to the bottom of the, in between the dots, but towards the net and more into the house. And just a beautiful sauce pass from Nathan McKinnon that he times it perfectly, rifles it on net, and he just seems like he has a lot of jump and he's wanting to get back a lot of time. I hope that doesn't. I hope it doesn't go like too much full bore to try to make up for lost time type of thing. But you can tell like he's energized. Looks healthy. And he's a huge part of this team, especially on the power play.
Yeah, and you bring up like that energy that he brings to the team and like how he looks good and he feels like he's making up for lost time. It's infectious on this roster right now. I pointed to like how they built off of his return in the first game against the Devils. And then in this game, they continued to build off of it. We're going to talk about a couple things in that second. But just the ability to get out there and be comfortable enough with your passing where you're holding long shifts for Minnesota and just wearing them to the bone.
Oh my God.
Like to be that comfortable and confident in what you're doing as a team where you can cycle out and shift and just allow Minnesota not to move and just exhaust them. That's a key. It's something we haven't seen in a while. And it's honestly something the Avs have been victim of because they have been so sloppy and atrocious on their play. It's refreshing. And the Val Nichushkin study is going to be a fascinating thing to look at the end of the year because that stat always comes up when he's injured, what this record looks like without him and what the record looks like with him on the team. And it's little things like this. Yes, he showed up on the scorecard tonight, but the little things that he adds to this team and the energy, you can't put a value on that. It's just it changes the complexion of this team.
The second period, when the Avs scored those 3 unanswered goals, you had the Drouin one immediately followed. Well, yeah, what was it? Maybe like 30 seconds for a minute later, something like that. The Jack Drury one was right after that, and you had a Ross Colton one later on. But the Avs were, to use the phrase, stacking shifts and having really good back-to-back shifts, keeping the pressure on Minnesota. And then you had it was like a weak clear attempt, but it went right to Oliver Shillington, who made a gorgeous pass to Jonathan Drouin, who kind of sprung him. And I was right around that time, I was thinking like, this is like another game where the Avalanche really don't have many breakaways in this game. But that was their first one, and he buried it. And then right after that was the Jack Drury goal, where they went right back on the attack, and you had a shot on goal, and it was like Gustafsson. I don't know what, he just was really either lazy or just slow to react. He had no clue where the puck was, and he's kind of he was almost out of the crease, and Jack Drury's right there to bury it for another goal. And that just took the wind out of the sails of the Wild. Like after that, like they picked it up towards the end a little bit, giving you a little bit of when the goalie was pulled. But I mean, it was, you didn't really feel like they needed to get 2 to tie. You didn't really feel like they were going to, and they just didn't have the punch. And yes, some of that is from the guys that they're missing, but we've seen the Avalanche do that where they'll get like punched in the mouth, and then maybe not respond the way that you want them to. And so many things that happened to the Wild today. We've seen the Avalanche be that team at some different points throughout this season, but it was Minnesota tonight. And once the Avs got that lead, again, it was one of those things where you just felt like, I don't think Minnesota has what it takes to come back from this. And they didn't. And I give a lot of credit to the Avs that they had a good game plan. Thought Mackenzie Blackwood was good in goal again tonight. So it was, your first 2 games at home is how you want to start. But I just like how they're playing in those 2 games is satisfying. and that is more what you want to see.
You could see that the team is starting to respect wins a little bit more now, because like watching the two teams, Minnesota is trying everything in their power to stay where they are in the Central. Everything's falling apart, and like you mentioned, like coming back and trying to tie that game up against Colorado, you could tell that this team is tired. They have held on as long as they can with the talent they have to their position. You could feel it starting to crack. And the Avalanche are trying to work their way back up. Now they have their sights on Dallas. It's a couple points ahead, but they're trying to work their way back up. And it felt like a passing of the teams and their trajectories. And and you have a favorable matchup coming up on Tuesday with a team that's just kind of sitting in the water. But this was a pivotal, that second period. We have a lot of turning points and things that we could point at in this season. This second period, I think, would be pivotal for where this team could end up at the end of the season.
Because I want to talk about that second period and that shift in particular. I'm sure you know the one that I'm talking about. So let's get our first break in, and we'll do that right after this. All right, let's hear from FanDuel, because when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And with FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. And right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com and join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so the end of that second period, that second period is definitely what won this game for the Avs. But towards the end of that second period, it really went down to when the second period ended. There was I guess you could call it collectively a shift where it was far and away the best shift that the Avs have had all season long. And if they could have only scored on it, it could have been the best shift in the history of the franchise. It was like a 3-minute long shift in their zone. There was one time where Minnesota did get the puck out of the zone, but didn't get a full clear. It only went to like center ice. And they only were able to change like one or two guys. So the Avs went right back into the zone and just picked up right where they left off because Minnesota didn't have enough fresh bodies on the ice. And the Avs just did whatever the heck they wanted to do. I was just sitting there like, and every team is capable of something like that, right? Mm-hmm. But for when the Avs were doing it, I'm just like, man, I haven't seen this shift, something like this in a very long time from any team. That was one of the most dominating things I've ever seen, and it just came at the right time. It came at the end of a period where really everything went their way. You had the 3 goals. You kind of just took, got your hands around the neck of this game in the second, and it culminated with that shift. And I can't imagine what the talk was like in the Minnesota locker room at the end of that period. They were just like, thank God we got out of that period without another goal, because they were just doing anything that they wanted to do. And it was probably not a nice locker room on the Minnesota side after that.
It had to be bad, because there were a couple instances while Minnesota was trying to survive in that shift. I saw players looking up at the scoreboard, and you could see them like processing, like, could we allow
time's not moving?
Yeah. Like, do we allow a shot here? If it goes in, whatever, we get a change. If we get to freeze the puck, like you could watch them like looking up while they're passing around at the scoreboard. Like, when are we getting out of this? And Nathan McKinnon tried to cycle it back to Cale Makar, and that was where it got back to center ice, and they got right back in it.
Oh, huge.
And it was, and the thing that really makes it for me, especially watching the team in the first quarter of the season, not make the silly passing mistakes and not trying to get too cute with it. They were passing with a purpose, and they were cycling with a purpose. Like, Natchez was setting up behind the net which is so rare for Avalanche teams to set up plays behind the net, even on a power play. And it felt like they were on a power play, they had the advantage, and they were just exhausting the team. Yeah, I agree. I wish they would have done something, because this would have been textbook for future Avalanche teams to come. Like, this is the shift we want.
Yeah.
But it was a work of art. I just wish
awesome.
something would have come from it.
It was great. So you had Ross Colton, who came up with 2 goals in this thing, and he hasn't been lighting up the scoreboard in quite some time. So you got to feel good for somebody like him to get not only 2 goals but an assist to boot. So a 3-point night for him. And that last goal might have never happened if Nathan MacKinnon was able to spring free on he had an empty netter. What do you think about that? I'm just going to bring this up for a second. Like, the net was empty, and he purposely, like, what was it? Who was on him? Was it Faber? I think let me see because they got the penalties here. I think where are my penalties here? I'm pretty sure it was him who came up with the penalty. Well, I think it was. Yeah, no, I don't. Not that it matters, but whoever it was, like MacKinnon knew he knew what he was doing there. He pushed the puck far enough in front of him where he could create separation from the defender, and the defender literally just pulls him down. It was like, in basketball, just to prevent a fast break, you take the foul. And for this, he was taking the penalty, but the net is empty.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if Gustafsson was still in net, no, that's not, like, he would have had a free lane to the goal, but he didn't have it. But when that net is empty, what's the end of that play is gonna result in. I kind of feel like, even though that happened at center ice, I kind of feel like that should have been awarded a goal for Nathan MacKinnon.
Well, I think, and this kind of goes back to Nathan MacKinnon and his fiery attitude. He was riding that ref the entire game. And I feel like it was the ref's way of saying, no, I'm going to control this game. Like, you've already won the game. I'm not going to give you this too. And then Nathan MacKinnon sounded off and got unsportsmanlike. Mm-hmm. Like, I think, and honestly, it goes way back to that head scratching referee pushing.
What the?
Tell
me that. How is that legal?
And I'm very sure this was a conversation that was going on the bench, and it just really started weighing on Nate. That everything going on was like, what are you guys doing? And then this is Nathan MacKinnon saying, hey, you shouldn't have done that. You got away with that, and just continually chirping in the faceoff dot. Yeah. And I agree. That's a clear, that should have been awarded a goal. But I think it's one of those that he was on that ref so bad that he was just not going to allow it.
We know Nathan MacKinnon has got a chip on his shoulder, and if you get on his bad side, he is not going to let up. Yeah, the ref gave him a penalty earlier in the game, and I think at that point, game was pretty much in hand because whatever. But so MacKinnon was just like, I'm just going to get my money's worth here. But the one that Kyle was talking about, someone on the Wild took a puck off the skate, and the skate blade pops off. I don't know if you've ever had that happen to you out on the ice, but it's impossible. Like, you're just immobile. You cannot move at all. You're just sliding all over the place. And you've seen kind of like
America's Funniest. I think
you're right. Yeah. You've seen like kind of, America's Funniest Home Video montages put together of players trying to crawl back to the ice. And most of the time they need assistance from a teammate, not the ref. The ref was pushing him from behind, getting him to, and where he lost the blade was like behind the net.
Yeah.
That's a benefit to the Avalanche. That's an equipment failure, which stinks for that team, but that gives the other team an advantage. It just does. And the refs took that advantage away. And not only did they take the advantage away, they called a penalty on Arturi Lehkonen, which I still don't know where that penalty came from. But you're getting a ref pushing a player to the bench to help that team get back to a 5-on-5 essentially. I've never seen that in my life, ever. And if the Avalanche lost this game by a goal or something like that, I'd be much more up in arms than I am right now. And I'm pretty up in arms about it. Right now, it's kind of just funny, but it's not really that funny if a ref is going to help a team. They're not there to do that. They're not. They don't go. Someone made a comment on Twitter, which is excellent. They don't go get a broken stick or a new stick when a player snaps one. Why are they doing this?
They didn't stop a play when our goalie was injured and allowed them to score a goal while he's laying on his back in pain. They didn't stop that for anything. So you can't say it's a safety issue because clearly you set the precedent that doesn't matter. That was the most egregious. And I wonder if this does become a little bit of a stink for that referee, because that's kind of really crossing a line a little bit.
It really
where you become part of the game where you're not supposed to, where if the puck hits you, hey, you're just part of the playing surface, forget about it. But when you are actively becoming part of the play to get a player off the ice, not because he's hurt, not because he's about to get hurt, just because he lost a skate blade, I think that's crossing the blurred line of where the referee's place is on the ice. And I wonder if the referee, like the union and the league, have something to say about this, and if he does not see any more NHL time.
I don't know, man. But this is yet another reason why refs need to be made available after the game.
Say it louder for the people in the back.
So you can just ask him, why did you do that? Yeah. And when he says, well, I had money on the game, you go, oh, okay. I mean, it makes sense.
Okay, gotcha.
But wow, like that just blew my mind. That I'm really curious to dive in, later on to see if that's getting talked about, if the league kind of addresses that, just because that should not happen.
No,
at all. So I always go to the thing of, what if that happened in a Stanley Cup final?
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like anytime something like out of sorts or out of the ordinary happens, just ask yourself that question. What if that happened in not only Stanley Cup final, take it to the nth degree, what happened if it was a game 7 of Stanley Cup final and a team is getting assistance from the ref? That would not fly. I'm sorry.
And I've seen social media getting an uproar over a missed hook or missed like too many men on the ice. I'm kind of surprised there wasn't more of an uproar during the game and league wide after that happened, because I cannot remember something that egregious happening in quite some time.
Nope. So, all right. One other thing I want to get to, I'll bring up the stats and stuff like that. And one of the Avalanche lines in particular had a really good day. So we'll talk about that next. All right, Kyle. So I know you're like me. Mornings, you have to start with a good cup of coffee. If you get tired of settling for grocery store brands that just aren't cutting it, you can turn to Trade, because the coffee over at Trade is absolutely next level. Trade is the #1 specialty coffee marketplace, there we go, in the U.S., bringing you fresh coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Their experts have taste tested thousands of coffees, curating over 450 amazing roasters. And with whether you're new to coffee or know exactly what you like, they'll handpick the perfect match for you. And I said, I'm going to pick a different coffee every time we do a read for Trade, and say, like, hey, maybe I'm going to put this on my list. I got one for you here, sir. This is a nice one. So let's see, the name of the roaster is Anodyne. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Anodyne. The name of the coffee is Mexico Margarita Cabrera.
Whoa.
All right. But that may make a little false sense of what the tasting notes are for this one. You ready for this, Kyle?
Bring it.
Tasting notes for Mexico Margarita Cabrera by Anodyne Coffee Roasters. Marzipan, dark chocolate, and cola.
Ooh.
I think I'm going to add that one to the list.
Yeah, that's.
I don't think I've ever seen cola as a tasting note for coffee.
Wow, I like that.
Gonna try it, and
especially with the dark chocolate. Ooh,
yeah, right. I want to get in on that. So, if you want to try it, Go to over to Trade, and they're exclusively offering our listeners 40% off of your first order at drinktrade.com/lockedonnhl. That's drinktrade, TRADE.com/lockedonnhl for $40 off of your first order. Go get that cola coffee right now.
Mm-hmm.
Come on now. All right. Before we get to the subtext crew, I wanted to give the boys of the line of Yoel Kiviranta, Jack Drury, and Ross Colton some love here. A Corsi 4 for them was 18, and a Corsi against of 4. That is almost 82% of the time. If a shot is happening on the ice, when those 3 are on it, it's coming from them. That is pure domination from your depth lines. And, to kind of give a comparison, your top line of Lehkonen, McKinnon, and Nashis was fine at 11, 4, and 7 against. That's only 61%. You're at 82%. They were great. And this is now 2 games in a row where your depth is, I don't know what's going to happen at the trade deadline, Kyle, but you're putting some, I don't want to say it's doubt, because the front office brought these guys in here for a reason to do this job. So I don't want to say you're putting doubt in their minds, but you're making it maybe a little bit difficult to pull the trigger on some trades that they wanted to maybe a week ago. We'll see.
No, and this is exactly what we want. This is what we've been screaming when it comes to production output since the Mikko Rantanen trade. Like, you want this to step up, especially when you hear things like this team isn't deep enough. You should take that personally.
Sure.
And you can see the spark in these line combinations right now. They're starting to play for something and have a little bit of pride. And if this is what we get depth-wise, yes, I have no idea either what this team will do next week at the trade deadline.
For your power play, like you said, they were 2 for 3. That's 66%. And for your faceoffs, 62% for the Colorado Avalanche. What twilight zone are we living in where the Avalanche have 62% faceoffs won?
And Ross Colton has 2 goals.
And Ross Colton has 2 goals and 3 points total. And overall, Chuskin did get that goal. Jack Drury with a goal. Colton with the 3-point day. Duren with a goal. McKinnon did get an assist. Marty Nashis got an assist. Kiviranta got an assist. That's your forwards. Your defensemen, Taves, Makar with an assist each, and Oliver Shillington with 2 assists on the day.
And Mackenzie Blackwood, secondary assist on that empty net goal to end the game.
Did he really? I didn't even notice that. All right. Good for him. So, yeah, I mean, you're going really deep if your goalie is getting some assists here. So, you just want that. You want all that to continue. A lot of what you have done in these last 2 games, you want so much of what has happened in those 2 games to continue.
Yeah.
So, let's get over to subtext and see what some people got to say over there. We got Lisa says, have to be happy with this win. Great to see depth guys getting on the board. They need to keep that going with the trade deadline. Those depth guys have to want to show they deserve to stay in Denver. I'm not kidding you. I don't read these before I read them live. And literally what we just said, Lisa's on board with that.
That's why Lisa's one of the good ones.
That's amazing. This is a Twilight Zone episode. This is bizarre. Cody, admittedly, I didn't have Colton with 3 points tonight on my bingo card, let alone Blackwood with an assist. Dude, but needless to say, it's nice having depth scoring again and seeing the Chuskin's hard work get rewarded as well. Our subtext people they're locked on, is what they are.
Cream of the crop, as Macho Man would say.
Who else we got here? Brandon. It's a great game. Oh, Riders of the Storm by the Doors for a soundcheck.
That's crazy. I almost pulled a Doors song tonight.
Still waiting for when somebody or even you or I have the same exact sound check, but that's a good one. Joe, you're becoming my best friend here in a second. I'll tell you why. Huge night for the bottom of the lineup. Glad to see some not top line goals. Absolutely. But where Joe gets me is his sound check. Depth Charge by Devin Townsend.
Hey,
Devin Townsend is one of my all-timers. You are a good man, Joe. Let's see. Kay, she put up a score bug.
Ooh.
Says this thing won't say final. Oh my God.
The
Okay.
ESPN.
It says end of regulation. It says 5-2 with the logos of the Avalanche and Wild. It says end of regulation. And she says this thing won't say final. Is there an instance where this could go to overtime? With these refs, Kay? Yes.
Yeah.
I think
probably.
they are still playing and we didn't realize it. So yeah, I'm not saying overall the refs were fine, but those two glaring ones. The one glaring one, 1.5. 1.5 glaring ones.
They get a C.
Wow, man. Heather, first game I've been able to watch in weeks, and our guys did not disappoint. Secondary scoring was on fire. I know Nate stands up for his team, and I was surprised by the unsportsmanlike penalty. Those splits from Blackwood were incredible. When you watch a man, when you're a man and you watch another man do splits, incredible is not what I would call it, but I get what she's saying. They were incredible, but they're painful, maybe is what I would say. What's another thing she said? It's about the unsportsmanlike. I'm not surprised by unsportsmanlike. He goes a little too far. He doesn't know when you're not doing yourself any favors.
Yeah,
you're not.
It's not his first, and it won't be his last. I can guarantee you.
No, God, no. I will go to FanDuel right now and put money down. At some point in Nathan McKinnon's career, he will get another unsportsmanlike penalty. So, all right, let's get to our sound check. Wrap this thing up, and this is where Kyle and I pick a song that summarizes the most recent game. Put these up on a playlist over on Spotify, which you can follow along. Just search for LOA Soundcheck. Volume number 4 is where you'll find these songs. So what do you got for this one, sir?
We're going to The Well, one of a band I thoroughly enjoy that you do not. I'll just
Kiss.
No.
Okay. All right.
Men who hold high places must be the ones who start to mold a new reality closer to the heart. This is Rush, baby.
Rush. So, okay, I just want to throw this out there because, it's not that I hate Rush. Rush is one of those bands where it's I don't like their sound.
Oh,
they individually are some of the best musicians to ever live. And I have all the respect in the world for them. The sound that they have, I can't get into it.
No.
Where, I said Kiss because I just hate Kiss. I think Kiss is a terrible band.
Now, there was a whole summer in 2006. I laid in the grass and listened to 2112 just on repeat and outside on a boombox.
Yeah.
Just pure memories. But closer to the
good.
heart.
Yep.
You beat your rival. You did literally everything you were not expected to do. You won the faceoffs. You won the power play. Mm-hmm. You had a really good, quiet goalie performance. You took care of business. And you didn't have to rely on your name guys. You didn't have to rely on Nathan McKinnon to get you out of trouble or Cale Makar to do Cale Makar things. This is closer to the Avalanche that we have been anticipating. Now you just got to continue it. This was a classic Trailer Park Boys episode too. So.
That is good. The Rush with the Trailer Park Boys. That's always good stuff. What I'm gonna go with here, we mentioned earlier is the shifts that you saw from the Avs and the term of stacking shifts. So I'm gonna kind of go in that avenue, and the Foo Fighters have a song called Stacked Actors.
Oh yeah.
It's not stacked athletes. If it was stacked athletes, I'd go with that, but we'll just call the athletes actors for this exercise. And it's, the lyrics, stacked actors, stacked to the rafters. That's what the Avs were doing. They were stacking shifts to the rafters, cycling in and out, and it was just a thing to behold. So a little loose with the title, but you see where I'm going with that. So
that's great pull. Great pull. I almost pulled Peace Frog by the Doors. So that it's all-time jam. So yeah, I like the vibes around these sound checks tonight.
Keep that one in your back pocket. I think that's a nice one. So, all right. So there you go. Saturday episode. Enjoy it, everybody. Enjoy the weekend. We will be back likely on Monday. So the next one for the Avs, you touched on it. but that is the Penguins, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's the 4th of March. So, and how we always end this show, which I will do now. Thank you for tuning in and making this your first listen of the day. That is always appreciated. He's Mr. Shaggy Von Doom. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast, and you're 24 hours closer of the Sidney Crosby and Pittsburgh Penguins coming to town, where maybe Sidney Crosby just hangs behind and just stays and doesn't leave Colorado.
We'll take Ryan Graves too.